Welcome down to the allotment on a very grey day in February. So today's tasks are, I've just been round my fruit trees. This one's a Granny Smith apple tree, and I'm looking at the effect of the dilute vinegar spray, and this was done from mid-December to mid-January. To me, I don't think it has harmed the fruiting buds at all. I will know in the next few weeks. I'll get back to you. Certainly reduced the level of moss and algae. And the other thing is, I've got to make sure my trees are clear and they've got plenty of this stuff around them. If I just take you around, it's my new chamomile area. So I'm transplanting chamomile around from chamomile tea, which you can make in water from the flowers. You can also make a concoction which is antifungal to help with canker. Not just that, you can also plant garlic and mint, garden mint as well as peppermint. But today's job is my little secret ingredient. As well as using chicken manure pellets, I make up a slurry of this stuff, and it's agricultural gypsum. It provides calcium, sulfur. You can get a little trace of magnesium maybe, but I'm also going to use Epsom salts. Now, why would you want to add calcium and sulfur in a clay-rich soil? Well, the answer lies in the chemistry of clay. Calcium is so tightly bound, it becomes the consistency of brick, almost like a solid. And contrary to what you might think, that means the plants can't get hold of it, the roots. So you could provide calcium in a much better form in agricultural gypsum. So what I do is I cover the bottom of this 7 kilogram container, which normally contains chicken manure pellets, with the gypsum. I use gloves, stir it up using a good old cane. Keeping my gloves on, I put about 4 or 5 cupfuls. You have to keep stirring because it won't dissolve properly, it makes a slurry. 4 or 5 cupfuls of this slurry, and I just put them round very close to the bottom of the roots so that the tree can take it up. And hopefully this program will be followed for all of my fruit trees, and hopefully that then supplies enough nutrients now early. I don't want to overfeed them, because then you just get, if you overfeed your fruit trees, you'll just get lots of extra leaves, lots of extra branches, lots of extra growth at the expense of fruits, which is also part of the process of pruning, to make sure that you don't have too many branches. This branch, which will have fruiting buds on it, which is on older wood on a cherry tree, is a good example of where canker has struck. Now, to alleviate it, I've used the dilute vinegar spray for a month, between mid-December and mid-January, with a little tad of detergent. You can see above it on this branch here, if I just zoom in, there's also the remnants of canker there. It hasn't encircled the entire branch. Other parts of the cherry tree have it. And this oozy, sappy problem is very common on cherries. Now, I don't know how well the experiment will fare this year, but last year this tree, its crop suffered quite heavily, due, I believe, to the effect of canker. But of course, it also gets the side branches there, as you can see here, if I try and zoom in there. To my eyes, these buds on this cherry tree look a lot more healthy than they did this time last year after the spraying programme. And I've allowed the tree a little bit more leeway this year and not pruned it so heavily, only because I want to see if it does help with the recovery process. Don't forget, of course, that cherry trees fruit better on older wood. You have to cut back to only a couple of buds on the that previous season's growth. And of course, I'm allowing it more outward branches and trying to get rid of inward crossing branches. This pear tree was very badly affected by pear rust, airborne spores of a fungus, and its host is the juniper bush. Now, pear rust manifests itself by the leaves having these sort of yellow spots, and there's a 3D structure to them where they literally sort of cause bumps on the leaves. I picked off all of the affected leaves and disposed of them separately. They must be put out off your plot, basically. And I've sprayed again with the dilute vinegar, hoping to combat the pear rust, but also made sure the area around the tree was cleared it all around. And I've planted, if you just look down here carefully, some garlic bulbs. These are antifungal, and of course chamomile is also antifungal. And in the quest to beat ants, it's also worth planting plenty of mint around fruit trees. They don't like mint. Ants can also be deterred by spraying the trunk with something like peppermint oil diluted down. I would only use about 20 drops in a litre of water with a couple of drops of detergent to deter ants. Now, as you go around your allotment, you'll see the areas where ants can be harboured. Underneath my paving slabs, terrible. So I lift them up regularly throughout the year and I have a go at the ants to get rid of them. I usually dig them out because you don't want ants' nests on your plot. I don't find them helpful if you've got fruit trees at all. Personally, I prefer to use deterrent methods to prevent pests rather than put chemicals on that may harm the things that I want to eat. Now, this pear tree, to me, it does look a lot more healthy, and I'll report back to you again when the buds have burst open and we can see whether this treatment program's helping, along with a simple grease band, which is basically Vaseline at the bottom, and that was to stop things like moths, codling moth caterpillars and things like that, and of course to deter ants. Some of my plum trees had something called silverleaf disease, and it's basically a fungal disease, and it causes the leaves of plum trees to look like they're peppered with look like loads and loads, hundreds and hundreds of tiny little holes, like some sort of filigree lace. Only it's not very pleasant because it also attracts other pests. You'll get little flying, hovering wasps and lots of ants. And the ladybirds, they'll try and help you by feeding off other insects such as aphids that may also be attracted to the sap that's released by the fungus that's eating the leaves. My treatment of dilute vinegar was also used on the affected silverleaf infected disease here on my plum trees. To me, by just doing 4 treatments, 1 a week between December and January while the tree was dormant, buds were tight shut. Again, I'll tell you if it works. Obviously, fungal treatments can also be treated by dilute milk and bicarbonate. You can use up to a 50-50 of dilute milk. I use whole milk with 50-50 water, some drops of detergent, and a couple of teaspoons of bicarbonate of soda. If I'm using a 2-litre sprayer, I spray the whole tree and underneath the branches. When I do the vinegar spray, I only do it between December and January when the tree is dormant, not now because the buds are about to open. And I'll get back to you and see how I get on with my fruit trees. I have mixed success with them, but I'm hoping the new regime of spraying and also planting chamomile, garden mint, or peppermints even, and garlic all around them and keep them clearer and pruned correctly will help with my regime. And finally, the rhubarb seems to be doing okay this year. It's had some chicken manure pellets. I'm going to be giving it some agricultural gypsum. You can also use a sprinkling of bloodfish and bone now, and some of the first shoots that are coming up will be hit by frost, but I'm reliably informed that rhubarb does need some frost. It stimulates growth, and this year I'm hoping it will be a good year for rhubarb. And finally, my newest acquisition is a long-handled 3-edged hoe made by Molten Mill. And basically this is a 3-edged blade, as it says. It looks pretty wicked. And depending on which way you want to angle it to cut your weeds, you can slice it forwards, you can slice it back towards you, you can hack it sideways. As you can see, it's seen plenty of action recently. So in your constant battle for the weeds, if you want a long-poled instrument that will tackle weeds, I'd recommend this one. It was quite reasonably priced, I thought. It goes on for a long way, and it does have at the bottom of it, even has a little strap there. You can hang it up if you like, if you're lucky enough to have a nice shed on your plot. So there you go, my latest acquisition. Well, that's it from me today on this very grey day. I've dodged the showers to come down just to show you a few things that I've been getting on with. When I came down yesterday to do some weeding, the clay ground was still covered with frost, but I don't like the weeds to beat me, and even though it's very slippy, I've made separate piles for the weeds. Most of them will still be alive even though they've been sliced, but that's it with weeds, you can't give up on them, can you? Till next time. The Epsom salts that I use on the allotment around my fruit trees, and including soft fruit and rhubarb, is pharmaceutical food grade Epsom salts, and I bought this container. It comes in different sizes. Obviously this is one of the larger sizes, and I would recommend that you use 1 to 2 teaspoons made up to a couple of litres of water. It doesn't have to be heavily concentrated, so I put it into solution and then put it onto the plants from solution, and so this will give you the magnesium that will hopefully help your plants, and the proper formula for it is there. It says magnesium sulfate heptahydrate, so there's also some sulfur it provides as well. So use this as well as agricultural grade gypsum, and make sure you get agricultural grade gypsum, because that is for food, which is essentially what you're growing on your allotment. So magnesium sulfate, which is the Epsom salts as also called, it comes in these quite fine crystals. I use, as I say, 2 teaspoons of the stuff made up to a couple of litres, so I only put a teaspoon into a litre of water, so that will last me a long time. And I only put it on once around the plants, around now, which is just before the buds burst. Okay, so I put it on fairly sort of mid-winter. You can put it on late winter, but I only put it on once, so I don't overfeed basically.